Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Pastor Ben. A special welcome to all of you that are tuning in online with us today. We miss you, but we're glad that you're joining us this way. We love you. Love all of you here. God bless you. It's good to be with you. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Matthew chapter 7. That's where we're going to start this morning. And as you turn there, I'm just praying God's favor over your life, God's peace over your life, and praying God's kindness over your life as well. That's been my prayer for all of you. And I want you to experience all that God has for you. Well, this morning we're starting a new series called Rediscovering Jesus. Seeing Jesus for the first time in a long time. How many know how easy it is to sometimes lose track of Christ in our lives? Anybody there with me? Have you ever lost track of something in your life only to be later reminded of it? You find it years later or whatever. The past year, my sons asked me, what kind of music did I listen to growing up? And I looked at it and said, well, that is an extensive list, boys. I started rattling off bands from Switchfoot to Everclear. I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Lifehouse. You know, I kind of grew up in that grunge era, right? Then there was classic rock that I loved too. I loved Boston and Creedence Clearwater Revival and the Eagles, good stuff. And you can't forget about country. Tim McGraw, he was my man, and Keith Urban, right? And I even got down with the rap growing up too, Nelly and Outkast, and oh my goodness. And who could forget our Christian bands like the Newsboys and Supertone Strike Back, anybody? All right, Plank Eye, Toby Mac, and the list could keep going. I love music. So the list was extensive. And then my boys kind of interrupted me like, all right, Dad, all right, but what was your favorite band growing up? And so I looked at them and I said, well, this band isn't necessarily too popular of a band, but they were called the Juliana Theory. And so they wanted to hear their music. So I found them on iTunes. I started playing all the different songs. And then before you know it, I'm just getting lost. I mean, I know all these songs, right? I'm just singing along to every word. I can't even remember what I did yesterday, but somehow I can remember songs from 30 years, 25 years ago, right? It's crazy. You know, it's amazing. They just all started coming back, and it was like rediscovering this love I had for this music on that day. And then I happened to look around, and my boys had left me because I was just singing to myself here in this room. They were like, all right, we're out, Dad. Peace. You know, come on. All right? So I'm not sure about you, but I've had times with Jesus over the years that I've enjoyed, and I can really look back at those seasons and those times in my life with some good vibes. You know, some good times with the Lord. But I've also found that it can be really easy to take my eyes off of Jesus in life. And it's very easy where I can start to live off of a relationship that I had with him rather than pursue that relationship further. In the rat race of life, it is easy to miss out on who Jesus really is and slowly, even unintentionally, make him into something that he is not. Sometimes we have to kind of step back and kind of ask a different question. We have to ask, have I made Jesus into something that he is not? Right? Am I missing who he really is? And if we've already answered that question, saying, no, I know who he is, I'm good, I know who he is, well, you know, I would just challenge you in this moment. Say, no, let's take a fresh look at the Jesus in the Bible this next month or so. And let's kind of go on a journey together of rediscovering who he is, right? Because it's really easy to get a little distracted and then to start making him into something that he's not really in life. And before you know it, you're actually beginning to worship an idol of your own imagination, not the God of the Scriptures, right? In any case, all of us go through times where we kind of feel distant from the Lord. Maybe he feels distant from us, right? We all wish that we experience more of him in our lives. And I believe he is inviting his church, his people. We're the bride of Christ. We should know him and know him well, right? I believe that he's calling us, inviting us back to knowing who he really is. Can I get a good amen for that? So let's let's see him this morning for who he really is, not what we've made him to be, not tell ourselves, oh, I know these stories, I've heard these stories before, but let's look with some eyes of faith, saying, Jesus, show yourself to me anew today. Come on, can we do that? Okay, let's get to the word together, and we're in verse 28 of chapter 7 in Matthew, and this is what it says. And keep your finger in this box. We're going to kind of cruise through it. It says, and when Jesus finished these sayings, well, what were these sayings? This was the Beatitudes, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Some of the best preaching and teaching of Jesus right there. Good stuff. When he just finished this, the crowds, says, they were astonished at his teaching. Astonished. For he was teaching them as one who had authority, not as one of their scribes. Now, people were astonished. They were amazed. They marveled at Jesus. Okay, we're calling this message today, Marvel Jesus, because he's like no other superhero in the Marvel universe, all right? And Thor has nothing on him. He's a little g God. Jesus is big G all the way. He's the only God, all right? Captain America, he was, frozen, put in ice. He woke up years and years and years later. Well, Jesus, he was put on a cross, then put in a grave, and he woke up 3 days later and defeated death. Can I get a good amen, right? And then there's Dr. Strange, who lost his ability to operate, but Jesus Christ is the healer of our humanity, even our very souls, all right? He can heal our soul. No human doctor can do that, all right? He is Marvel Jesus. And the people that day that were around him, the crowd around him, that day they saw him for who he was, who he is, and they marveled at him. There was a distinction with what the people were used to getting up to this point and what now Jesus was giving them. All right, and the people were kind of used to getting the same old, all right? They were used to getting a lot of information, just kind of just, read from the scriptures. They're getting plenty of Bible, but it wasn't connecting them to the God of the Bible. And listen, this is a wonderful book. It's the scriptures. It's set apart. It's amazing, but guess what? What it does is it helps us to connect to the God of the Bible. Okay? And that's what Jesus was doing in that moment. And so when Jesus entered in on the scene, it says he taught with one who had authority. Look at somebody and say authority. Say it with some authority. Say authority. Come on. Oh, man, we got to work on that. My goodness. Jeez. I know it's February, but come on. Authority. All right. Come on. Not someone who's going through the motions, but someone who has some weight behind the words that he's saying. They recognize in Jesus that his message wasn't like anybody else's message. His message came from life and the dependency that he had upon his Father. He had authority. He had influence behind what he said. What he said had weight. It was like one of those weighted blankets. I had to kind of discover what one of these things are. Does anybody have a weighted blanket? Anybody sleep with a weighted blanket? I'm like, what is the craze? Why are these things so popular? Like, where did they come from, a weighted blanket? I had to figure this out, and so I found out, I guess, not by experience, just by Google, that they are therapeutic, supposedly, right? That's why people use them, and supposedly they're therapeutic, and they produce this sense of calm and relieve some of the tension from your body. Who knew that a weighted blanket could do such a thing, right? But really, words, if you think about it, they don't weigh you down. They are weighty. They've got substance. They are dense packed. But at the same time, they're therapeutic for our soul because it's life. And these people felt the weight and the peace from his words on their souls, and it brought them something that they never experienced before. Their anxiety-ridden lives, their depression that they went through, the hardships and the difficulties. Am I going to make it? What's next? All this is going on. But yet something about Jesus' words had weight in their lives. Jesus never gives information just for information. He gives information for your transformation. That's why he spoke. That's why he gives us his word, because it's not just for our information. It's not how much more that we can cram inside. It's how much the words of God are transforming our lives to be more like Jesus. People were astonished at the things that he was saying that day. They were amazed because they found something. They saw in him life, real life. Something was being wakened in them. Something was stirring their souls. There was this transformative power that came from this guy by the name of Jesus. Their eyes were open to something new, something different, something that was life-giving. Their experience with Jesus, later explained in John 6:63, it's the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. No help at all. The words that I've spoken to you, Jesus said, are spirit and they are life. And they were experiencing just that day. Jesus' words carried authority and peace because they were infused with spirit and life. The crowds marveled at his words. They were astonished, amazed. They were in awe. I find it's hard to be in awe of the Lord, even today, if my faith looks a lot like a scribe, where I'm just copying and pasting the words of Jesus into my life like a scribe would, and Jesus really becomes a little effect. He wants to transform who we are. And when we start to dig down deep into what Jesus has said, who he really is, we can't help but marvel at who Jesus is. It's like he's pumping oxygen into our lungs. It's like he's directing that sunshine on our faces. It's like he's waking us up, refreshed, ready to go, even though it's freezing cold outside. Jesus gives life. That's what he does. He's not just information on a page. He's transformation in the heart. His greatest desire is for you and for me is to live alive. John writes about that in the first chapter, verse 4. He says, in him, in Jesus Christ, was life, and the life was the light of men. That's what he came for. That's who he is. He is life. It's life. And his definition of life is abundant. It's bursting forth. It's wondrous. It's just greatest of magnitude. Jesus is not dead religion. It's not being bored out of your mind at church. He's not a moral obligation. He's not an intellectual duty. Jesus is life, and he came to make you alive. He wants you alive, not just existing. He wants you alive. Ephesians 2:5 says, even when we were dead in our trespasses, do you know we were all dead? We're all dead. But when Jesus came, we put our trust in him. It says he made us alive together with Christ. By grace, you have been saved. He came to make you alive. Love forgiveness. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. Thankful for it. But Jesus came not just to give us forgiveness. He came to give you life. John 6:48, Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. John 8:12 says, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 11:25 says, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. John 14:6 says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. The central principle of the gospel is this resurrection life. And we don't have to just preach about it on Easter. We should live it every single day because Jesus is alive. And he wants you alive. He wants me alive because he's overcome death, spiritual death. He overcame physical death, emotional death, any type of death in there. He overcame death. He is all about life. If you start at the beginning of this book, you're going to find in Genesis 1, what did he come to do? He came to start life and life abundant. Right before Jenny and I, when we were married over 17 years ago, I commented earlier in the other service that she's getting a little old, but I'm not going to say that here, all right? Just kidding. I might not be back next week. If I'm not, you know what happened, all right? But I decided that that before we got married, that week before, I didn't want really anything to do with like a bachelor's party. And so most of my guys couldn't come into town anyways early. So my best man, my good friend, he planned some other things. We did a number of things, we lived up in Watertown at that time, did a bunch of stuff in town, he took me out to these different places, all that kind of stuff. But the real party was when we traveled up Route 3 into the heart of the Adirondacks, and we found Cascade Mountain. And that day we were going to climb Cascade. Anybody climb Cascade here before? You better, all right, my man, all right? Everybody else, you got to do it, all right? It's a great mountain, but beautiful mountain, one of the best scenes I've ever seen. But it wasn't over after the mountain. See, we traveled up a little bit further to a spot that we'd only heard about, and we weren't even sure if it was really there. And to find the spot, you had to get off the road, and you had to kind of travel into the woods and kind of this not too well-worn of a path, and you kind of get into this place. You're wondering, like, have we found this spot that we're trying to get to? And before you know, all of a sudden, when we finally kind of break through the woods, we get to this scene where just right in front of you, you got all these mountains surrounded by just the sea of beautiful forest, God's beauty just right in front of your face. Amazing. But you don't want to go too much further, because not too much farther in front of you, the path ends. You see, we were going that day to go rock jumping, all right? And if you ever done that before, it's a ton of fun. And if you don't know what rock jumping is, basically, you jump from a high rock into water, all right? That's what we're going to do. And in the middle of this scene, you can imagine just with me, kind of get out to this cliff face where these two cliffs, they kind of go diagonal, all right? And right in the middle of it, there's just this small kind of stepping stone, but it's kind of pointed, it kind of looks like a big arrowhead. But it's uneven, and so you're supposed to jump, just basically, you can't run and jump. All right, there's just not that type of room, and plus you don't want to slip, because the cliff, it actually juts out just a little bit, so you got to make sure that you clear that at the bottom, or it's going to hurt real bad, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I get up there, it's my turn, and it's about a 30-foot jump or so, and my bro is there, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore, right? And so, it's either I jump or I remember that I have some injury that I just acquired as we hiked in there, right? But man pride and all that kind of stuff, you just can't do that, you know what I'm saying? So it's time, and it's like 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, and a couple more times until finally I take the plunge and I go for it. In that moment, as I'm soaring down, possibly to my death, I'm thinking, I'm free falling, right? I hit the water. It is ice cold, all right? I mean, freezing. And before you know, the next thing that I remember, I'm about 10 feet under the water now, and I'm looking up, clear shot, even through the water. I could see that rock from which I just jumped from. And that water was so cold. Let me tell you, mountain water's freezing, all right? I was just, wow, it was freezing. It was breathtaking, all right? In every meaning of that term, all right? Do I have to admit, in that moment, in that couple seconds, that's all it took, in that moment, I felt really, really alive. Really alive. More than just an experience or something fun that I can do to kind of satisfy the adventure craving that is deep down within me, if I'm thinking about it, I want my life to look like that moment, where I'm living in much more surrender, and I'm living with much more courage in all aspects of life. Not just jumping off a cliff. I mean, some of you think I'm stupid for doing that. Be nice. All right, no. But really, not just for the fun times or the adventure in life. That's what Christ has called us to. I want to stop waiting for what others think of me and what others want from me in life. I want to start living for what God thinks of me and for what God wants. I want to start living for what God has designed me. One of my all-time favorite books is Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. Love that book. And he writes in it, I want to charge the fields of Bannockburn. I want to follow Peter as he followed Christ out onto the sea. I want to pray from my heart's truest desire. He goes on and says, life is not a problem to be solved. It's an adventure to be lived. See, God rigged the world in such a way that it only works when we embrace risk as the theme of our lives, which is to say, only when we live by faith. Only when we live by faith. That's what he's saying. And it takes faith to really follow the real Jesus. You can have a belief system, but faith is a little bit different. Faith brings you on an adventure. Belief, we can twiddle our thumbs and believe a lot about God. But faith moves you forward, brings you forward. I like what St. Irenaeus said. He said, the glory of God is man fully alive. You know, that's God's glory, that we come alive. It says that in Romans, actually. All of creation is waiting, is groaning for God's sons and daughters to wake up and live according to his glory and purpose. Jesus said, the path that leads to life is narrow. Not many find it. And we often look at that narrow path and we say, oh, that's kind of like the higher road, the road of integrity, the righteous road. Not many are on it. And that's true, absolutely. But listen, it's also the road that Jesus is walking on. It's the narrow path. And you better believe wherever Jesus is walking on, there's some life because he's the source. It's a path of life. Not many experience the life that Christ has called them to. Sure, it's more than rock jumping and mountain climbing. Christianity is becoming all Jesus means for you to become. That's what it is. That's what following Jesus is. That's what he wants to do in your life. He wants you to become all that he has designed for you to become. Just after this experience of the crowds marveling at Jesus' teaching, he comes down this mountain and he encounters this kind of walking dead person. You know, I'm serious. It's like that. It's like a walking dead person. Right? In the Jewish culture, at least, that's what they would think of them as, like a zombie or something like that, a leper. Okay, and this man, obviously, he was contagious. That was a disease that everybody stayed away from. And this leper, he comes to Jesus. When all these people are around, he was unclean. He was legally not supposed to be there. He was breaking laws at this point. He was most likely being criticized, threatened, shamed, all that kind of stuff. But he came to Jesus. And it says in here that he knelt down before Christ. And this is what he did. He said, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus looked at him, the author of life, the creator of life, looked at him and said, I am willing, be clean. And immediately he was cleansed. Life just met death, and life beat the tar out of that death that day and brought restoration to a man who was entrapped. Okay, he was chained to this disease for all of his life. All he knew was his life of death. And Jesus touched this man, brought him up, and gave him new life. And when Jesus touches somebody in the Gospels, we see the blind, they now can see. We see that the lame, they're healed. They can walk. The shamed are embraced. The outcast and the condemned, they're forgiven and they're accepted because life is more powerful than death. And this is the hope of the gospel. And it's the momentum of our faith. The cornerstone of which all other empty claims are shattered upon. His name is Jesus. Jesus is the infinite one who has no beginning and no end. He's the morning star that inspires hope to the darkest of nights. Jesus is the great metaphysicist that does not examine the meaning of life, but he fulfills it. He is the victorious champion that doesn't need chariots, he doesn't need armies, he doesn't need horses, but he'll be returning on a white horse one day. Jesus is the creator that holds all things together by his word and his word alone. He's the greatest sacrifice you and I, this whole world, has ever known or seen. His name is Jesus. He is the cornerstone of our faith. And so if our view of him is off, our faith could be a little bit too. But when we start fixing our eyes, just like the leper did, on Jesus, rather than on the conditions that we're going through, rather than an idea we think we know of God, rather than what we've known of him in the past, rather than what we learned in Sunday school class when we were a little kid, when we start to fix our eyes upon this Jesus, our hearts start beating again. Our hearts start beating again with faith and love and life that only he can produce in us. When we see Jesus for who he really is, not what we've made him to be, not what we've shaped him to be, not what we desired him to be. Hebrews 12:2 says, fixing our eyes on Jesus. Not the stuff that entangles and snares, not every weight that holds us down. Cast it off. Fixing our eyes on this Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, endured the cross, despising its shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, because life always wins. We see him again for the first time in a long time. We rediscover who Jesus is. We take a step back and stop looking at who we've made him to be, but actually look at him for who he truly is. He is the author and the perfecter of my faith in my life, your life, life in the fullest sense of the term. The leper, he fixed his eyes on Christ, not his problem, not his pain, not his own plans, not on the crowds, nor on the ceremonial law that said he could not be there in that moment. No matter how ashamed he felt of his condition, he fixed his eyes on Jesus Christ, and he saw differently than all those crowds. The fullness of life can only be lived in Jesus Christ. You can't have life outside of him. There is no life outside of Jesus. So why do so many of us, why do so many Christians live dead? Why have so many lost that life of Christ within us? I'm going to offer to you today, it's because we see Jesus like the crowds did, not like the leper, not like the next guy that we're going to read about in verse 5 of chapter 8. It says, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, truly I tell you that with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. While the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into outer darkness, in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. So before the crowds marveled at Jesus, and now Jesus is the God who is marveling at a man's faith. The crowd recognized in Jesus that there was life, there was weight to his words, there was authority in what he said. They marveled. But it was the leper who came to Jesus and made Jesus personal. It was the centurion that requested personal help from Jesus. It was their response that Jesus marveled at. The centurion a man with authority, a man with means, with money, with privilege, with honor, with respect, all of these types of things. Here's the centurion. And yet he makes Jesus personal. He's not ashamed to need Jesus. He's not ashamed to need Jesus Christ. It's kind of hard for our 21st century American mindsets sometimes to need anything. I don't know if I really need that, right? We can see how the leper needed Jesus. He really needed Jesus, didn't he? Changed everything around. But what about the centurion? Did he really need Jesus? Didn't he have all that he needed? Did he really need this other worker in his house? Did he really need this person? I'm sure he could have just gone and got another one, right? No, but he saw the real Jesus. A Jesus worth marveling at, a Jesus worth pursuing, a Jesus full of life. A centurion, he wasn't just given that position of a centurion. Centurion, he worked up the ranks to receive that type of position. It was a position of honor. Centurions weren't just given a title. They would be on the front lines with their soldiers that they were leading in battle. They would be the first ones out there. And so you can imagine there was a lot of respect for anybody who was following a centurion in their army or whatever. There was a lot of honor in that. But they had to earn it. They were self-made, so to speak. The reason he was in that position was because he worked hard, he fought hard, and he earned it. Kind of sounds like sometimes some of us here, right? We work hard, fight hard, we earn what we have in life. It's not bad. It's a good thing. But yet this man who had a position of authority, anybody else would look around him and say he's got more authority than Jesus because Rome came and ruled over them and all that kind of stuff, right? But yet he recognized something in this man. That's what's so mind-blowing about the difference between the leper and the centurion. Both of these men understood something that the crowds didn't. The crowds, again, saw life. They felt the weightiness of his glory. They were inspired and motivated by the life that they saw in Jesus. But the leper and the centurion, they saw Jesus with a different perspective, a perspective that you and I have to have when it comes to Jesus. An understanding that bridges the gap between the dead stuff in me and the live stuff in Jesus. Because left unto myself, I get pretty dead pretty quick. I need Jesus. I need his life in my life. Somewhere along the way in our faith, we get lost in a crowd mentality. I know that I have. I've grown up in the church. I've seen and heard a lot of different sides of Jesus, supposedly Jesus. Seeing how he can easily get lost in the shuffle. I've seen a lot of Jesuses that aren't really Jesus, if you know what I mean. Kind of like genie in the bottle Jesus. If I warm up to him, he's going to give me all that I want, right? I've seen name it and claim it Jesus. All I need to do is declare your faith over a situation, and Jesus is going to do it for you. And if he doesn't do it, it's because your faith has the problem. Holiness Jesus. That kind of looks like, oh, you know what? Jesus is super spiritual, and so I must be as well. Kind of, my personal holiness gets me closer to God than, them. Don't know who them is. Political Jesus. Jesus is on my side of the political spectrum. Politics. They might outweigh my faith a little bit. Mysterious Jesus, he's mystery. Weird Jesus, culturally relevant Jesus, quiet Jesus, disengaged Jesus, kind of a whatever goes Jesus. The list could go on and on and on and on. And somehow the real Jesus isn't seen anymore because all these other things are overshadowing our view of who he really is. See, the crowds feel the weight of Jesus' authority, but a genuine seeker understands the weight of his authority. Those are two different things. The crowds in the gospel narrative stay the crowds. But these two individuals, the leper, the centurion, People that are willing to go beyond the crowd mentality. People at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. One's got it all, one has nothing at all. But each of them sees something greater about Jesus. They saw him for who he really was. They acknowledged the authority that he lived his life in. They actually could change their lives, and they invited the authority of God, the authority of Christ, Jesus himself, into their lives to intervene. See, the crowds felt the authority of Christ, but the centurion understood the authority of Christ. Real life is not found in the crowd, but in the personal presence of Jesus. And many times our faith dwindles, dies out, because we're not seeking the real Jesus anymore, but a Jesus that we shaped into our own image, a Jesus shaped into our own desires. But both the centurion and the leper, so they saw Jesus differently than the crowds. The lepers didn't just want to feel the authority of Jesus, he responded to it. The centurion didn't just see the authority of Jesus Christ, he submitted to the authority of Jesus Christ. A centurion submitted to the authority of Christ. I mean, think about that. A centurion did that. He submitted to another authority that was outside of Rome, outside of his leaders. He saw something so different in Jesus, and he marveled at it. And Jesus marveled at his understanding. This man stepped out and took a risk to believe a Jewish carpenter who became a popular figure to the crowds that he was in charge of controlling. The centurion understood that Jesus' authority wasn't present just to simply give everyone what they wanted or needed, but there also was a great responsibility on the authority that Jesus exercised. If your view of God's authority is skewed, your understanding of how God relates to you will be incorrect as well. The centurion understood Jesus' authority. It wasn't based on getting what he needed from this person or that person. His authority that Jesus walked in wasn't given to him so that he could give everybody what they wanted. No, his authority came because he carried a responsibility to give life to you and to me. Jesus' responsibility cost him his life. Cost him his life. The centurion understood that beyond the crowds was a life of sacrifice, of humility that fueled his authority. Remember when Adam and Eve did not understand the authority of God in the garden? They missed out on the life of God. They missed out on his undistracted presence. They were deceived into not trusting God's authority, God's weight in their lives, and ultimately their spiritual lives died because they were allowed to be deceived. They deceived themselves. They allowed themselves to be deceived and to walk away from the life that God gave them. And God just said, just don't do that one thing. And you can have life. You can eat from the tree of life. But they chose the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And when we start to live in that tree, we lose the life that we can have in Christ. When we become the crowd, we become spectators rather than players in God's design. We miss out on that life that he wants to give us. And then we wonder, where did Jesus go? Why haven't I seen him in a while? Why is there no spiritual life fueling me anymore? It's because we don't entrust our lives to his authority. We question it. We know all about what Scripture says. Somewhere along the way, we don't want to be in control. We grasp for our own control. We say, no, God, not that area. No, God, I don't want to change here. No, God, I'm not going to change here. We tell ourselves we can decide for ourselves. All the while, we see this spiritual life just drift away. Drift away. We don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay there. In closing today, I just want to show you 3 quick things. First, Jesus responds to our personal invitation for his intervention. God wants to intervene in our lives. He wants to intervene in your life. But guess what? You got to invite him to do so. The centurion did that. This self-sufficient man asked for the life of Christ to intervene in his life. We've got to go beyond the crowd, go beyond spectating, to our recognizing our need and asking for Jesus to be sovereign over our self-sufficiency. Number 2, Jesus sees us differently than we see ourselves. Do you know that Jesus sees you differently than you see yourself? No matter what this world has told you, you are, Jesus sees you differently. No matter what you've believed over the years up here in your mind about yourself, and the false stories, the false narratives, the lies that you have believed, Jesus sees you differently. Jesus sees you differently, and you need to know that. You got to understand that. He saw the centurion differently. The centurion said, I'm not worthy for you to come to my house, but Jesus says, I'm coming. I'm coming because I've got something for you. There's life, and it's not just for this person that you want healed. It's for you. I'm coming. Jesus is willing to go to this guy's house, no matter what. Number 3, the last one, is this. Jesus marvels at faith that matches the reality of who he is. That's why he marveled at this centurion, because the faith that he had matched the reality of who Jesus really was. No one likes to be looked at as something that they're not. Nobody likes to just be used and moved on from. Nobody likes to be treated as someone who would just give people what they want, like the crowds wanted from Jesus. Not even God likes that. Jesus was amazed at this man's faith because the centurion's faith understood not only God's ability, but God's responsibility. The centurion received life in his home that day, certainly, but he received life in his heart that day. He was awakened by the Spirit of God. Spiritual life is not only is awakened by faith, but faith is only alive when it humbly responds to the authority of God. The authority of God. The authority of God. And the question is, what has overshadowed your view of Jesus? What have you allowed yourself to question in God's authority on your life? Can he be trusted? Last week we talked about it. Can I be trusted in God? Can you trust God? Can you trust that he's got your best in mind? Can you trust that his love is greater than all the stuff that we experience in this world? I believe God is calling you and me, his church, today to see Jesus for who he really is. Not what we've made him to be, not even what we maybe learned sometimes over the years. We got to have a fresh perspective of who Jesus is. Not through the lens of our political persuasion, not through the lens of how we grew up, not through the lens of our family environment. No, through the lens of who he is here. Who he is here. As we kind of wind down here, I want to ask this last question. If you've been feeling a bit dead lately spiritually, and you want the author and the perfecter of your faith, the creator of life, the one whose words are infused with spirit and life, to kind of infuse you with some life. If you want to live alive in Christ, maybe you want to go beyond where you're at right now. I just want to invite you today, right now, just to stand in the presence of the Lord. But you got to have some faith. Because if your faith is just, maybe, Jesus is interested in a faith that he can marvel at, church. Not a faith that it's like, I don't know, when I feel like it, when it's convenient for me. Jesus, he wants to marvel at your faith. But we got to bring that. We got to bring it. We got to say, Jesus, I want more of you. I want more of you. I want more of you, God. I want more of this life that you came to give me. If you just bow your heads with me today. Father, you see the heart's response today. You see each person. You know each person's name. You know how they're wired. You know what they're going through. You know in this moment if they're resisting you. You know if they're questioning you. You know if they're seeking you. Jesus, I would pray, calling upon your name, the name of life. Lord, I would ask, God, that you just bring your life anew, afresh in your people today. That can only come by your Holy Spirit. It can't come from copying and pasting. What the pastor said this morning, it comes from your Spirit, God himself, the Spirit of Christ, who's operating, who's here, who wants to bring wake up calls to all of us in a good way. Wants to say, come on, I've got life, come. There's abundant life. That's what I came to give you. That's what I want to establish for you. Jesus, I pray your life over each person. God, no matter what the enemy has come to steal, no matter what this world has robbed your precious people from today, from their past, God, no matter the anxiety that holds them down from their future, Jesus, you came to give life and life abundantly. So God, I pray that your life would swallow up all the death in our hearts, all the death in our minds, all the death in these bodies, Lord Jesus. Because you rose again and you're alive and well today, and we are not supposed to walk this walk of faith without you, Jesus. Without your presence, without your spirit, without you being our guide, without you being our lead, without you being our comfort. And so, God, we call on the mighty name of Jesus Christ. And God, we know that life is a lot different when we're walking it with you. And so, God, we just come and we just bow ourselves before you today in a spirit of surrender, in a spirit of courage, as we step out. God, to rediscover who you really are, not what we've made you. Not what we made you, God. We reject that. And God, we want to see you. So God, I just ask, God, for anybody who's looking through the eyes of the crowd, God, that they'd make it personal today. And if you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, he's calling your name right now. You can question it all that you want, but the Spirit of God is working in your life. All you need to do is surrender to him. Say, God, right now, I'm calling upon your name, Jesus. I'm confessing you. I believe that you died and rose again for me. I believe that you forgave me of my sins. And I believe that you want to call me into a life anew. That's all you have to do in your hearts today. Jesus, I ask that you just honor these people with your presence, God. God, even as we begin to worship you right now, God, I pray, God, just for the spirit of life, God, of life abundantly and everlasting, God, just to come forth, Lord Jesus, in our lives, oh God. In our lives, God, as we welcome you, as we worship you, as we make it personal right now. Let's sing unto the Lord together. Let's respond to him in this very moment. Can we do that, church?
When you walk into the room, everything changes. Darkness starts to tremble at the light that you bring. And when you walk into the room, every heart starts burning. Nothing matters more than just to sit here at your feet and worship you. We worship you. We love you, and we'll never stop. Can't live without you, Jesus. We love you, can't get enough. All this is for you, Jesus. We love you, and we'll never stop. I can't live without you, Jesus. We love you, can't get enough. And all this is for you, Jesus.
We're going to continue to worship you together today. But I want to invite you either down front or in the back corner of the room. We're going to have prayer for anybody that needs prayer. Listen, if there's any dead stuff in you, let's meet it with the life of Christ today. Come on, but that means you got to have some faith to make it personal. So there's 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, says he's there in our midst. So I want to encourage you, this is before you go. If there's anything right now that's just weighing you down, get some prayer before you take off. Pray, let's believe for something greater. Let's have a spirit of life, an atmosphere of life as our faith just meets the reality of who God is. Amen? Amen? Amen. Amen. Come on, let's give God some praise today. Let's have some life. Come on, let's worship the Lord.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. 'Cause we love you. We'll never stop. Can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Can't get enough. And all this is for you, Jesus. And when you walk into the room, sickness starts to vanish. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. And when you walk into the room, the dead begin to rise. There is resurrection life in all you do. We love you. We'll never stop. We can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Can't get enough. And all this is for you, Jesus. Jesus. And come and consume God, oh yeah. Oh, we want you. Come and consume God, oh yeah.
We give you permission, our hearts are yours. We want you. We want you.
Come and consume God, oh we are.
We give you permission, our hearts are yours.
We want you.
We want you.
Come and consume God, oh we are.
Give you permission, our hearts are yours. We want you.
Oh,
We want you.
come and
Consume God, oh we are. Give you permission, our hearts are yours. We want you.
oh Jesus.
We want you. Come and consume God, oh we are. Give you permission, our hearts are yours. We want you.
Oh,
We want you.
'cause we love you. We'll never stop.
Can't live without you, Jesus.
And we
Love you. We can't get enough. And all this is for you,
Jesus. Jesus. Oh, I need Jesus. I need you. Jesus. I need you. And when you walk into the room, everything changes. Darkness starts to tremble at the light that you bring. And when you walk into the room, every heart starts burning. And nothing matters more than just to sit here at your feet and worship you. We worship you. And we love you. We'll never stop. Can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Can't get enough. And all this is for you, Jesus. We'll never stop. Can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Can't get enough. And all this is for you, Jesus. Jesus. Jesus, oh Jesus, oh Jesus, oh Jesus. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. And when you walk into the room, sickness starts to vanish. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. And when you walk into the room, sickness starts to vanish. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. And when you walk into the room, sickness starts to vanish. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. And when you walk into the room, the dead begin to rise, 'cause there is resurrection life in all you do. We love you. We'll never stop. Can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Can't get enough. All this is for you, Jesus. And we love you. We'll never stop.
Can't live without you,
Jesus, we love you.
and can't live. All this is for you, Jesus.
And come to God, oh yeah. Oh, my heart is yours. My heart is yours. And come to God, oh yeah. Oh, my heart is yours, Jesus.